Daniel chapter 7, let's get going, hey? Okay, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head while he was on his bed, and he wrote down the dream telling the main facts. One verse, what does it tell us? One verse. The first words tell us what? That Daniel is not chronological. Okay? Chapter 1. Intro, the dietary stuff or whatever, I'll just call it intro. 2 is the image. 3, bow, burn. 4, what do we do? That's the ego, Nebuchadnezzar. Ego trip. Then we go from there, yeah, that's right, but I mean, from there, this is where we go to chapter 7, because it's in that reign, when we come back for the Cyrus side of things, it's in that reign that we end up with chapter 7 here. In his year of his reign, we end up with chapter 7, which I'm going to call the fourth beast. Then we go chapter 8, which is the ram and the goat. Then we go chapter 5, which was Babylon fallen. Then we go 6, which is the lion's den. Then we go on 9, 10, 11, 70th week, etc., 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 silent years, whatever. So right from the first verse, we know that the book is not written chronologically. And this tells us something about some of the key prophetic literature. Because I used to like a guy called John Hagee, but he's off the rails. He doesn't preach the gospel to the Jews because he thinks they're saved by some sort of special covenant or whatever. But when it comes to the end times, he reads it all as chronological. So he ends up making no sense whatsoever. It's just all dribble. You know, by the time of it, you'll have 50,000 trumpets and, 10 million judgments, and then it all seems to replay itself, and the Euphrates dries up, then it dries up again, and suddenly there's another trumpet that does it. It just doesn't make any sense when you read it chronologically. You say, Paul, prove it to me. Let's go in Revelation chapter 14. Revelation chapter, we only need one chapter to prove it. If we can prove it in one chapter, then you know the book of Revelation is not chronological. Is that okay? If I prove it in one chapter, you know it's not chronological. Okay, I'll keep my little finger. What can I put in there? This thing, that'll do. Okay, chapter 14 of book of Revelation. Let's read it together. Okay, it says, Then I looked, and behold, a lamb standing on Mount Zion. Now, when the lamb stands on Mount Zion, can you please tell me what's happening there? Have a guess. The lamb standing on Mount Zion. That's when Jesus has come back. Yeah, that's right. His foot is touching Mount Zion, Mount of Olives. When he ascends there and his foot's on there, not the same Mount Zion, but anyway, it's his foot's there. That's the coming of Jesus. Is that right? Okay, so let's lock in that first verse. When the Lamb is standing on Mount Zion, that is Jesus returning back to physical Israel. Okay. And it goes on with 144,000 having his Father's name written on their foreheads. Okay, so the 144,000 are there. Heard a voice from heaven like the voice of many waters. Let's go down to verse 6. Then I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having an everlasting gospel to preach to those who dwell on the earth, to every nation, tribe, tongue and people. So when Jesus comes back, is he going to be preaching the gospel to people? That's right, he comes back for judgment. The time for preaching the gospel to every nation is right now. It's an everlasting gospel in the sense that those in the millennium will need the gospel preached to them to be saved. But when Jesus comes back, he's coming back for judgment. Already we start getting confused. Is that right? So let's keep reading. We go to verse 8. Verse 8, and another angel followed, saying, Babylon is fallen, fallen, that great city, because she's made all the nations drink the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Okay, Babylon, Babylon is fallen. We went through Babylon. What's Babylon? False religion. When we read it in Revelation, the woman who rides the beast gets cast aside. She gets killed. That's Babylon, Babylon is fallen. The beast will keep going after that. We're confused more if we keep reading. Is that right? Because Jesus has come. If Jesus come, then is Babylon fallen then? No, it's fallen prior to this. Okay, so let's keep going. Verse 9. Then a third angel followed, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast in his image and receives the mark on his forehead or on his hand. So are we saying Jesus comes back, then the mark of the beast happens? You see how you start getting confused? You start reading it chronologically. Jesus, the lamb foot on Mount Zion. And then in verse 9 we have the mark of the beast. And if anyone takes the mark of the beast after Jesus has come back, well, don't be stupid. That happens before, doesn't it? So you can see it's not chronological is where we're going. We're going to keep going. One more verse and then we'll go from there. Verse 14. And it says, then I looked and behold a white cloud. And on the cloud sat one like the Son of Man, having his head a golden crown. One like the Son of Man is Jesus, is that right? So Jesus comes on verse 1 and then he comes in verse 14. No. Jesus comes once when his foot touches Israel, it's on like Donkey Kong. So we know that it's not chronological when we read this. The mark of the beast doesn't happen after Jesus comes. And so Daniel opens our possibility to saying, okay, when he's reading this, he says this, I saw this, oh, and then I saw that, and then I saw this. It's not a chronological thing. It's like, I saw Trish, oh, and then I thought of my dad over here, and then I thought of Mum this morning over, you know what I mean? He sees different things that the Lord is showing him, not necessarily in chronological order. Okay, so people get confused in the book of Revelation because if you take that one chapter and try and put it in a chronology, it doesn't fit the rest of the Bible. So I saw and then I saw and then I saw this, you know what I mean? So just take it in that way. Anyway, then we go to verse 2. We got to have the first verse. That took a while, didn't it? Has anyone got the timer on me? Yep. Good on you, mate. Okay, verse 2, keep me honest. Okay, so Daniel spoke saying, verse 2, and I saw in my vision by night, behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea. And so you'll read some commentators here, they get very discombobulated about whether it's a vision, whether it's a dream or anything on those lines. He has a vision or a dream on his bed. Who cares? You know what I mean? Who really cares? I've only ever had one vision in my life, and that was when we were going through COVID, and I said to you, the Lord showed me this great big storm, and he said, this too shall pass. Remember that? So that was the only vision I've ever had. Other than that, you have dreams. So that's the only one I've had. But anyway, is it your young men shall see visions? I must be a young man, eh? That was only a couple of years ago. There you go. All right, so we've got this verse 2 here, four winds of heaven stirring up the great sea. Now you can read over the top of that and just, that's normal. Okay, there's a bit of wind going on in the great sea. When we read Scripture, Scripture interprets Scripture. When we're particularly in the Old Testament, we're looking in Hebrew here. The word for wind is ruach. Okay, it's spirit is what it is. And so we can, and when we get to Daniel chapter 10, I think it is, where we start having a look at the dark side of things. In that one, this is a hint of what's going on. He sees four things coming out of this great sea. To them, the great sea was the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, so out of there we have spirits that are arising, four spirits that come up that are stirring out this great sea. Daniel's about to tell us about these empires that we've seen previously, okay? And so we've got that going on, the Mediterranean Sea, or you could interpret it as well. If you go to Revelation 13, when we see the seas, that Revelation says that the seas, the Gentiles, every tribe, every tongue, every nation can be interpreted as the seas as well, okay? But I think it's provocative that it does say the Great Sea. And so so when we have a look at that, let's just go through All right, we'll go back to that. Okay, let's keep going. Number 3. And the 4 beasts came up out of the sea, each different from one another. So they weren't derivatives out of the one kingdom. It was not, a subsect of one kingdom. These kingdoms are all distinct, which is how it played out in history. Okay, and the first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth, made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Okay, so the first beast that we look at here is this strange idiom, but for Daniel probably not, because he's writing in the time of the 3rd king. And when we look at the gates of Babylon, I think this is still on, good. Let's go here. Is that working? No. No, it's having a fit, is it? Righto, let's go here. It wants me to say, tell me again in 24 hours. Sounds good. Let's do that. Get rid of that. You don't want to move. That's good, isn't it? Okay. How's that? This is the gates of Babylon. Very regal. You'll notice from the first beast that comes up, remember the head was of gold. When we go back to the image, right? Number 2. So, regal. We've got the lion. Who's the king of the jungle? That's it. The lion king. Okay? Then of the birds, we've got the eagles. The most regal of all birds. Is that right? Look, there's better hunters out there, but somehow the eagle gets the top of the tree side of things. Okay? So, these are both showing that it's the uppermost kingdom is what God's saying through all of this. But in the midst of this, when the tile's coming into the gate here, what we find is this. And you'll notice it looks like a normal lion. But when you see the things down here, see that? That's not a normal mane. That's a lion with wings on it. So you can go to the British Museum and you'll see what Daniel saw. Daniel saw the first kingdom as a lion with wings. He goes on and tells you that that's lifted up and given the heart of a man. Is that right? Well, this may be an allusion to what happened to Nebuchadnezzar. Is that right? He's a beast. It's interesting to note that when he's showing the image, it's the glory of man. You know what I mean? This great big golden image and silver and bronze and iron. Oh, how wonderful and magnificent and awestruck this image is. When God begins to break down these kingdoms, he shows them as rapacious beasts. Okay? Driven by man's greed and lust for power, etc. But we have going on here the first image. So we've got the wings going on here. And what happened to Nebuchadnezzar? He got brought very, very low. Is that right? And I told you, from not in the Bible, but from other Jewish writings, the Talmud, they say in there that Daniel nursed Nebuchadnezzar for the 7 years where he was mad. And then he got given the heart of a man. And the kingdom changed after that. Okay? And so that's what he's alluding to in this one verse. Very dense in that. Okay, I think that's it. And then let's have a look at the Babylonian kingdom here. Okay, so when we look at the Babylonian kingdom, and we're going to go through these kingdoms, we start here. This is the Great Sea here. So a spirit stirs up, 4 spirits. This is the first of the spirits that stirs up the Mediterranean, comes out of the Mediterranean. You'll note that all the kingdoms that we look at will be based or locked around the Mediterranean Sea. So it's exactly as they said these spirits would come out of, okay? So we've got the Babylonian Empire and the date that's up there, whatever. Then we read the next one, okay? And suddenly another beast, a second like a bear, it was raised up on one side, this is verse 5, and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And they said thus to it, arise, devour much flesh. So this one is a bear, and don't assign Russia to these things, or that's pure conjecture, pure allegory. There's many theories out there. Let's look at what it meant to these guys before we start leaping into other things. So we come first and we say, okay, this thing's a bear, and it's raised up on one side. It was called the Medo-Persian Empire. Remember, we went through it. 2 arms. The silver arms that came out, so Medes and Persians, because Cyrus was a Mede and a Persian. Okay, mum and dad were of the 2 different clans. He had 2 of them together and united the peoples to create this empire. But if you look back in time, no one really calls it the Medo-Persian Empire, is that right? They all call it the Persian Empire. So we have a bear that's raised up on one side, 2 legs, but one is big. And also, when we look at it, there's 3 ribs in the bear's mouth because there were 3 main battles that established this kingdom. There was obviously Babylon was one. Then you had Lydia that was taken up the top here, and Egypt down the bottom. That consolidated this kingdom. So most commentators say there are 3 ribs in the mouth, where them devouring those 3 countries and establishing this kingdom. So we have how God describes these animals. It's a voracious, it's a bear. A lion devours its prey. A bear doesn't devour its prey, it crushes its prey. Okay, it's got different methods of subduing. And when this guy came on, he was able to field an army of 2.5 million people. Now that's a lot of people today. But when you read in ancient times, what a sight that would have been, 2.5 million people taking a battlefield. And so he began to crush people out. And many battles were done without even a battle. Just the sight of this thing coming at you was enough to surrender. Okay, so that's that one. Let's move on to the next one. The Greek Empire. And so we read in verse 6. After this I looked, and there was another like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings. So speed is an issue here. Wings of a bird, so quick. They also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Okay, and so this is where we round it out. So 4 wings tells you it's quick. This is the next one. Once again, all these empires around the Great Sea here. Now we'll go more into Alexander the Great when we get to the next chapter, when we talk about, you know, the ram and the goat. But what we have going on here is a kingdom that went so quick, that was established so quickly. This man changed his military tactics. The world had never seen the tactics that he came up with. He was a genius, really. And so by the age of 29, he was reported to be weeping on his bed, saying there's no more worlds to conquer. He'd gone as far as he could go in the known world at the age of 29. And when he died on his deathbed, they said, who are we going to give the kingdom to? He said these words, give it to the strong. And who they gave it to was 4 generals that we have here. And so they went through the 4 things here, Cassandra, Lysimachus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy, and they all fight over this buffer state, or this, they become the 2 dominant, but initially there's 4 that's there. Okay, so it's given 4 heads. But speed was its hallmark, which we'll have a look at next week, so let's not do that. Okay, so we'll get the easy stuff out of the way. Now we go to verse 7. Verse 7. After this I saw in a night vision, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth, obviously an allusion of some sort to the image in Daniel chapter 2. We've gone through the other kingdoms. The last kingdom, the Roman kingdom, is one of iron, remember? And so, iron and clay, I guess, at the end. But anyway, he's saying iron here, teeth of iron, exceedingly strong. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it. It had 10 horns. 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were the eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. I think I can put that down. We're done on that. Okay, so let's be careful here in our reading, because this becomes convoluted. And if you think today I'm going to give you all the answers, you're a twit. There's some things in Scripture that are veiled till the end, and we cannot dig into them enough to get where we want to get to at the moment. That's my view. You can get, so I'm not even going to cover off, there's 1,000,001 theories on this thing. You can go on YouTube and chase down every nutcase out there that's going to tell you, I got the answer, I know exactly what it is. My belief is it's veiled at the moment. We don't know. We can make aspersions and we can be alert to the theories, that's fine. But to know, to say definitively this is what it is, I think you're kidding yourself. This is what we do know. We're just going to write down the things we do know. From what he's saying, there are 10 horns, and this little horn is not one of the 10. Right? That's key. It comes up from the 10. From amongst the 10, this little horn comes up. Now, we're strange when we think of horns. Imagine you come and I say, come and spend a weekend with me and we'll go out to the cabin on the lake. And when you come out to the cabin on the lake, you see over the fireplace a little thing like that with some little horns on it. I say, what sort of hunter do you think I am? Yeah. Pretty poor hunter, eh? The strength of an animal, the strength of the kingdom was the strength of the horns. Okay? You see a big antlers horns, you go into Balmoral or something like that up in Scotland, and they've shot the deer, and you see the big deer antlers up in the dining room. You know whoever brought that down, well, in the old days when you had to do it by hand, was a good hunter, eh? And nowadays any fool with a bullet can do it. But, you know, to bring something that down, it's a powerful animal. The size of the horn is the thing. If you get a big rhino horn and it's big, you know that was a big rhino, a powerful rhino. And you brought that down, good luck to you. You know what I mean? Elephant tusk. You got a little baby tusk, they think, oh, what sort of man are you? Bring one of them down. Get a big tusk coming out of that thing. Wow, you faced an elephant, brought it down. The size of the horn is the size and the power here. This should give us something. It's not only, I'm leaping now not just for the Roman Empire, but to the end game here, where the Bible talks about this little horn, which we will have a look at, but it starts a little horn. We're not looking for the Antichrist to burst onto the scene as some massively powerful, all-consuming. No, he starts as a little horn that comes up amongst these 10. Okay, so we're not looking for some bloke just to announce himself on the scene and be a world leader of huge stature. This man starts in the background amongst these 10 and starts to creep up, okay, in there. However, he's boasting big things, okay? All right, where are we up to? Verse 9, is that right? Okay, and we can leap a little bit ahead here to 17 because it defines itself. It says, those great beasts which are four kings which arise out of the earth. Okay, verse 17. So even though we got beasts which were kingdoms and empires, in verse 17 we go to a singular. A lot of people get caught up and they'll have a battle. Is the beast an empire or kingdom? Or is it just a man? No. Here we have two things brought into focus. It's most definitely a kingdom, but you can tell from the first description that Nebuchadnezzar was the man that was raised up and given a new heart. So it talks, the beast was the king, but also represents an empire, okay? So the two are not at odds with each other. Okay. So larger horns, larger power, okay? Verse 19, let's go through that. It says, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, whose teeth were of iron. Remember I told you iron is the metal of war, the hardest iron that they had. And his nails were of brass, so he's going to have judgment. Okay? And which devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with his feet. Now, when we just apply this to the original Roman Empire, it was different. Because the Nebuchadnezzar's empire, he took the best of those from Israel and brought them into the court, is that right? Then we have the Persian Empire, he did the same. Got Daniel, brought him in as an advisor. The Greeks did the same, okay? But Rome was different. It took great pleasure in destroying everything, levelling places to the ground, okay? And its power was in its destruction. So it does relate definitely backwards, but gives us an insight as to the fact that Daniel can't even describe this thing as an animal. The first three he can describe as a beast. of some description. It's a lion, it's a bear, it's a leopard that leaps quickly onto its prey. That's its method of destruction. This one, he can't even describe the animal. It's too awesome, it's too terrible to describe, and that should give us some insight as to if we get a world kingdom of some description as to what it might look like. And so, verse 23, and we haven't, we'll go backwards, but anyway, let's keep going. Then he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and tread it down and break it in pieces. So he's not a greenie, but he might be trying to save the planet, who knows. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings. Okay, so once again we've got horns, but he described, the Bible says itself, it's 10 kings that shall arise. And another shall rise after them, okay? This plus one, and he, singular, a man, be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change the times and the laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a times, and the dividing of times, and half. So we got one, and then the times is a plural, not a plural, because I've said that before, that it's a plural. It's not a plural. This is not in many languages, but and it has faded out of Aramaic now. But if the way that Chuck Missler explains it is excellent. He says, if I invited my friends over for tea, both of them, you get the idea there's only 2 friends I've got. The both is what he's saying. A times, not more than that. It can't be construed as 3 or 4 or 5. It's a both. So you can have one, both, and half. So whatever happens here, it's going to be 3.5 years is what we're looking at if you take the other explanations in Revelation that go with this. So time and half a time. He's going to have, we're going to start with 10 kings, but out of these 10 kings, he tells us 3 are not going to quite agree with his program. Is that right? And what's going to happen to them? Plucked up by the roots, and we're left with 7 is left. Okay, so we start with 10 kings. So all these games of I'm going to show you who the Antichrist is, let me show you, I calculate his name. You're not going to have a clue who this lad is, because firstly you're going to have 10 kings, and out of that there's going to be 1 that comes up amongst them, and then he's going to take down 3 of them, so that there'll be 7 at the other end of things, okay? So good luck with your search there. Okay, in Revelation 12:3, it says there, and there appeared a wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon its heads. Okay, so here we have the same, obviously it's an allusion to this chapter in Daniel. This is where people, if you think you can get this, good on you, because there's subtle differences, isn't there? He goes on here and he says, okay, 7 heads and 10 horns. So it may be just this, 10 horns, 7 heads in here. Maybe that's what it is, or it's reversed or slightly adjusted, and 7 crowns upon the heads. Whichever way we cut it, the 7 are going to be the ones in control at some point. Okay? They're going to lead this system. And people break this up into Oceania, North America, South America, 10 regions, all this sort of stuff. I'll leave that all up to you to go and hunt down. Okay. But we see from this that the beast is also a system. When we're reading in Revelation 12 that it definitely is a system, because you've got a linking of a number of kingdoms. Is that right? You've at least got 7 with crowns on their heads. So there's 7 kingdoms that are in here of some description. So it's not one nation, it's a multitude of nations, things like that, okay? Revelation 13:1 as well. Let's go to Revelation. I'll keep my little place, sorry. You've got to jump because this is a big topic. Revelation 13 and verse 1. Remember, you asked for it. Here we go, 13 verse 1. Here we go. And I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, same as Daniel. having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns. See the differences? So, can you get this out? We've got 10 crowns, we've got 7 crowns, we've got... Hello? What may be happening here is this is prior to the Antichrist pulling these 3 down, where we start with 10 crowns. Mate, we're just spitballing here, you know what I mean? Man, good luck to you. You come up with what you want to. And on his head's a blasphemous name, is what he's saying. So, then we go in verse 2, very interesting. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard, his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon, who Satan gave him his authority, his throne, and great authority, okay? So here we have the same animals that we see in Daniel, but I wouldn't be overlaying Daniel just over the top of this thing, because when we see it, these beasts are now declared backwards. Now you'll have commentators who have nice little trite things they wander out here. Oh, it's because he's looking backwards that it's backwards. Well, maybe that's right, but you can't just say that. You know what I mean? Who knows what really is going on here? But we have these all in here. The beast is somehow, like Daniel 2, the one image becomes the image that they bow down to, the Antichrist. Here we have the beast, but in the beast is Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, all in the one. Because the beast has a leopard, a bear, you know what I mean? A lion. All these things are in there, so we're going to have a mishmash of these things as well. It's not just one, it's the whole image. It becomes a point of contention here, I guess. And then it goes on. Okay, so that's enough of that. So the whole image is the image of the Antichrist, of course. So let's go back to Daniel, book of Daniel. And then we did that in Daniel 2, and it tells you here that the toes were, the feet were part of iron, part of clay. The kingdom shall be partly strong, partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, thou shalt mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave to one another, as even iron is not mixed with clay. And in the days of these kings, these 10 toes, in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume, not the Roman kingdom, all these kingdoms, it says. Okay? So we've got all of them wrapped up in this beast. How's it going to work out? Good luck. But it will become evident, but people concentrate just on the Roman Empire, but it's not just the Roman Empire. There's the whole kingdom in here. All the kingdoms end up in this thing. And another thing, just to throw you right off, why not just throw everything out with the bathwater? Also, we've got 2 legs in Nebuchadnezzar 2, 5 and 5 toes, is that right? Which we go back to our ordinary interpretation that we had in Daniel 2, and it became East and West and Roman kingdoms, which included Turkey and Persia and all this sort of stuff on one side, and then you had all the other countries on the other side. Who knows how this thing is going to cut up? 10 kings, where are they coming from? One thing we know is they're coming out, because Daniel tells us here, they're coming out. Oh, you've got to turn that thing on. Here we go. They're coming out of the Great Sea. Remember, the Spirit comes out of the Great Sea. So it'll be somewhere in the midst of these kingdoms that we have. That's where the 10 kings are coming from. So people who say, oh, it's America. Oh, it's Britain. Well, if it's Britain, it's not all of Britain, because that was never part of the Roman Empire. The Scots held them out. The Welsh held them out. Northern Ireland held them out. The Poms rolled over, of course. If you're a Pom, I apologise. You can't help where you come from. Sorry, couldn't help it. All right. And it says, Revelation 17:3, so he carried me away in the Spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit on the scarlet. Remember, the woman is not the beast. The woman is the false religion, right? So this scarlet, so forget about Vatican and all this sort of stuff. We're talking the beast. Forget about this thing. Okay, and he sits on the beast, and it's a scarlet coloured beast. Scarlet coloured beast. And it goes on and it says that it's got, what have we got? 7 heads and 10 horns. So we're back to that, 7 heads and 10 horns. Okay. And it goes on in Revelation 17 verse 9. And here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains. That's fine. 7 heads are 7 mountains. Okay. It's Rome. Rome sits on 7. No. Let's keep going. That's what we said when we're talking about Babylon. Keep rolling. Okay, because it goes on with double interpretation. It says, 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, and there are 7 kings. So there's 7 hills. 7 heads are 7 hills, but also there's 7 kings. Then it goes on and says, 5 is fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue a short space. Time, half a time, if we're going to put the end game. Now, okay, I've got here notes and notes and notes on... People apply this to the Roman Empire, right? Now, there's two ways they go about it. They'll say, okay, if John wrote this in the time of Vespasian, then they list these emperors. These are the 5 that have come, 1 that is now is, and 1 still to come was the next emperor. Or if he was, which historians say, if he was in the time of Domitian, then they have another separate list of emperors. Those 5 are now gone, this one's here and the other one's gone. You've got to be true when you look at these things. No one has a clue. Because the 5 that you've chosen, you've left some out. You know what I mean? And the one that you said's coming, there was another one that came after that. None of them fit neat here. This is another thing that's going to be veiled. We don't know what this means. 5 are fallen, 1 is, and 1 is to come. What we do know is the devil will replay everything that Jesus Christ says he is. And he is the one that is and was and is to come. Is that right? And so we have the man of sin that comes. He's going to replay the same thing. He was and is. And there's 1 to come. So we have the same thing coming through in this theme. How this relates to that is beyond me. I don't know. Maybe you'll know. I've got the list of emperors. If you're interested, we can go through that. But I think it's pointless because what you choose is you'll leave out some. So when you're trying to... People say this has all been, all happened already in the Roman Empire. Well, depends who you choose, isn't it? It comes down to everything in Christianity. How you define the terms and who you leave out and who you put in. So I think you've got to be honest and say, you don't know. I don't know what that means, 5 fallen. I know the theories. It's not like I don't know the theories, but I don't want to spend the next 20 minutes telling you theories. I don't know what it means. 5 fallen, 1 is and 1 is to come. But in some way that's going to relate in here. Okay, here's another thing I wanted to address. I was going to do the laws and times and everything, but I don't want... We did a short one on that, so I just want to address something else as we go through. We'll finish with one other bit here. Okay, you got Revelation 17:11. The beast that was and not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7. So we're back to 7 plus 1. He's a plus 1. He's the 8th. But he's of the 7, but he's 1 of those. What does it mean? You would see it through the lens, I guess, of Judas, the only other man of perdition. He was of us, but he wasn't one of us. Otherwise, he would have stayed with us, is what the scripture says. But he left us, you know what I mean? So he was one of us. He was a Jew. He was an apostle, but he left us. So he wasn't one of us. He was one of us, but not one of us. So this will be the character of this guy. Are you confused? You should be. Daniel's not an easy book. Okay. All right, so, and verse 12, and the 10 horns with their saw are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So these guys are going to rise up together, 10 together. You're not going to see the Antichrist, you're going to see 10. And then they're going to rise up with this little horn who's speaking blasphemous things, and up comes, and we go from there. So, All right, and these shall have one mind, and they shall give their power and strength to this beast, and they shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And they that are with him are called the chosen and faithful. And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sits, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. So it may be the Gentiles, or it's going to be the Mediterranean. And the 10 horns which thou saw upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and make her desolate, and make her naked, and eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. Who's going to make that happen? These guys. The 10 horns are going to make that happen. Once they get to power, religion's a great thing to get to power. Once they unify everything under that, and it's done its time, they're going to do this to this Babylon. Okay, they're going to bring it low. And then God has put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and to give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of God be fulfilled. Then we go to Revelation 13. Okay, here's another one, another beast. And I beheld, 13:11, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. And he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake like a dragon. Now these things have come out of the oceans. Now we've got another beast that comes out of the earth, okay? Now the earth is we don't have time to go through it, but the earth speaks of Israel, okay? Like a root out of dry ground, Jesus came from. He came unto his own, the own received him not. He came out of dry ground. The nations gathered together. One piece of land came out in Genesis. That was his land, okay? You got the Gentiles in Hebrew language. You got the Goy, that's you and me. Goyim, we're the Gentiles. And you've got the chosen people of God. There's only 2 that go on there. So the land is significant of that, of the people, the chosen people of God, as in Israel, okay? They're chosen in that sense to be a lens for us to look through, and everyone else is the Gentiles, okay? So we've got that. Here we have a beast coming out of the land. So this puts a question mark. Is this beast of some sort of Jewish descent? Okay? So we come now here. So, and he's got 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exercises power over the first beast before him, and causes all the earth, them which dwell, to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Okay? And he doeth great wonders, so that he make fire come down from heaven on the earth and the side of men, and deceive them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had wounded by the sword and did live. Okay, much we can go into there, but needless to say that this is probably a man, and if miracles are going to say, okay, that's God, if I see a miracle, then you're going to follow this bloke. Because he's going to show you miracles like the Pharaoh's magicians did. Okay? You'll have Jesus comes, and he's got 2 witnesses at the grave. He's got John the Baptist that goes as his forerunner. They go before Pharaoh. There's 2 of them. There's Moses and Aaron. There's miracles that happen there. And they've got the Pharaoh's magicians that do the same thing. Okay? They start up to a point. So he's going to have miracles up his sleeve. Here's the one I want to talk about. So Daniel 7:21. We're back into Daniel 7, finally. I was watching, and the same horn was making war against the saints and prevailing against them. Okay? Here's a verse that troubles many. Okay? Because they say, well, we're not going through that. Yeah, that word prevail there is a bit troubling, because it's the same one that says, the gates of hell shall not prevail against them. You know what I mean? I'm going to build my church, and the gates of hell are not going to prevail against them. So they get troubled at this point. They say, okay, well, we're going to be out of here, and so we're going to have, this is going to be a subclass of saints. They start making a separate category of saints that God's going to treat like this, because it can't possibly be us, because we're out of here. And he said that he's not going to prevail against us. So how can we be doing this? Well, I just want to say that when he said the gates of hell shall not prevail, there's no against there, shall not prevail it. What he's talking about is he's standing at this point in Mount Hermon, which is the cradle in Israel of all demonic activity. Okay, on here they had the sacrifices to Baal, where they did some child sacrifice, and there you got Pan was there at the time when this was happening. So a man, a god pretending to be man. And here we have Jesus, 100% man, 100% God, and he declares war here against every spiritual power on their turf. The gates of hell, they would have surrogate sex with animals and stuff like this for Pan. It was a debauched, demonic place. And in this place, Jesus stands and says, the gates of hell will not prevail against my church. He was in fact saying, listen, the gates of Sheol, it's not hell, it's Sheol, but where the abode of the dead is. Death cannot conquer my kingdom, is what he's saying. Doesn't matter how many people you kill, how many books you burn, doesn't matter what you do, what I have planted in this earth will grow from this point on. And how many Christians have been burned at the stake, how many Christians have been massacred, and yet today on the planet we have more Christians standing on this earth than ever before in human history. Despite the pogroms, despite the slaughterhouses, despite the massacres, we have more Christians standing on here today. He says the gates of hell will not prevail. In fact, if they kill us, what does that mean? We're with Jesus, and we can never be removed. We have finally reached our destination. There's nothing that they can do from this point on. When Jesus says the gates of hell shall not prevail, he's saying, no, not that they can't persecute you, not that they can't torment you, not that they can't hunt the church from geographic areas. He's not saying that. He's saying, doesn't matter what you do, you cannot get rid of my seed in this land. It cannot be done. Every tyrant out there that has been fixated demonically on this has been unsuccessful. And there's one to come that's going to try this all over again, which Daniel 7 talks to us about. You say, Paul, how can you say that? I say easy, because if we're talking about, the church is going to prevail and it's just going to get better and bigger and better and all this sort of stuff, well, I've got to ask you a question, because John wrote the book of Revelation, in chapter 2 and chapter 3, he wrote about the churches of Revelation. And if you go and visit those churches today and you're female, you might have to put a scarf on because they're all Muslims. They're there as tourist attractions, but there are no churches there today. They didn't want Jesus, they killed the Christians, and they got rid of them out of Turkey. Does that mean they've prevailed? Well, in some sense, they got them out, didn't they? Does it mean they will eternally prevail? Absolutely not. Every knee shall bow, every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. They cannot win no matter what they do. All they have done is bring judgment on themselves. What about northern Sudan? All the Christians that have been hacked to death with machetes. The children taken to become part of their army. The church is decimated in the northern Sudan. What does that mean? Does that mean that Christ is not alive? That he wasn't true to his word? No, it means they don't want Jesus there. And because of that, they're going to suffer the penalty of that. They'll be starving in no time. They won't be able to feed their kids. They'll be dying because they made his children die. And an eye for an eye and a tooth for tooth is how he deals with the nations. And if they want to do that, then it'll come back upon them. They'll have no peace, they'll have no rest. They will kill each other. But you want peace, you bring Jesus in. You let Jesus have free reign. But they've killed all this off. So it is possible for groups of people to get together and say, listen, we're going to kill every stinking one of you Christians. And they're going to drive you out. And Jesus said, if that happens, flee to the next town. He didn't say, stand and declare war on them. You can't move me, I'm a Christian. Well, I'm moved now. I'm in two minds, one over here, one over there. Jesus himself said, if they don't want you, get out. Flee. Leave them and they'll have hell on earth. And that's exactly what will happen here at the end. If we're going to have ultimate hell on earth, then the Christians, the restrainer is going to go, the godly influence is going to go, and they're going to start having hell on earth. That's what we've got going on right now. Is that right? We're taking God out of every institution we can get hold of. Are we better off for it with all our technology, all our smarts? No, the world's in chaos is where we're going. and we're going to continue to go there. Okay, so it's no coincidence that when we get to the 10 horns and the 7 heads and all that sort of stuff, it's a picture of the dragon in Revelation 12. Revelation 12, we have Herod, remember, hunting for the child. And he does kill children, is that right? Jesus got away, that's great, isn't it? But what about all his cousins in those villages? They would have all died because they didn't get out. Jesus got out, but they were all slain. You're thinking, wow, wow. And Revelation 12 says, and the dragon was wroth with the woman, or angry with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which kept the commandment of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Who has the testimony of Jesus Christ? Christians have the testimony of Jesus Christ. And so the dragon is making war with these people. Revelation 13:7, in the next chapter it says, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life, and the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. We're going to have a time here where culture is going to move so far against us. It's happening right now. Our currencies are being exchanged for digital currencies where they can cancel. They know exactly what you're buying, when you're buying it. And if you will not participate in their economy, which will ultimately end up in a mark, you will not be buying and selling. You will be not able to participate in that economy. And that's going to be a really defining line, isn't it? Of who's a Christian and who's not, because otherwise you're going to take it. Who's going to watch your people starve? No one's going to watch anyone starve. You're going to get the mark, get a feed. You know what I mean? All your money's going to be locked up. You can't get access to it because you got no mark, and that's the way you're going to do it. So they're already going that. The NAB has put out how good it is to take a mark. Suncorp sent me a text telling me how good it's to take a mark. We're all moving in this direction. They're all changing the currencies right now over to digital currencies. They're going to get rid of cash, and off we go, and we'll go from there. Anyway, let's finish on something it's too big. You can't get everything here. I'm just giving you things to look at here. But just one thing that I want to have a look at. Daniel 7:18. Let's go back to that one. Because you might be here today and you'll say, okay, Paul, I don't believe a word you said. The church is going to get better and better. And we're going to get dominion over this world, and we're going to bring it into subjection, and we're going to take control of these politicians, and we're really going to shake this place, and there's going to be a huge revival in Australia and around the world, and everyone's going to get saved, and when we've got everybody saved, then Jesus is coming back. Right. Okay, let's read Daniel 7:18. Very clear, I think. It says, but the saints of the Most High shall, future tense in Daniel's time, receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever. So when we're given it, we take it forever, even forever and ever. Okay? Then we go to 22. 22. Until the ancients of days came and a judgment was made in favour of the saints of the Most High, and the time came for the saints to possess the kingdom. So, when, two things in here, we've got judgment shall be handed over to us, and we've got the kingdom coming over to us. Now, people say this, okay, I say, when the Ancient of Days comes, that's when we'll be given the kingdom forever and ever. And they say, yes, Paul, the Ancient of Days did come. Yes, it did. But the kingdom of this stage is, my kingdom is not of this world. The kingdom is within us. Okay? Much as a pregnant woman carries a baby, that's what the kingdom is. It's inside us at the moment. But at the point that this comes, and the narrative is there in Revelation 12, the kingdom will be birthed, and then Jesus, the man-child, will be birthed on earth and be a ruler and rule the governments of this world with a rod of iron. Okay, that's the picture. At the moment, the kingdom of God is within us. That's why we don't have a mandate to take up arms and turn Australia upside down. Remember, they were going to do that for Jesus, and Jesus said, look, forget your sword, man. I can call legions of angels here and turn this city up and burn it up in a crisp. I can do that, but we're not doing that. And Peter grabs a sword and says, I'll protect you, Lord. The King of Kings needs protecting, does he? Anyway, lops off his ear. Jesus puts it back on and says, put away your sword. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. We're not to use that sword, not a physical sword. We use the sword of God's word, is what we use until he comes. When he comes, then he will rule. And with a rod of iron, though. Okay, make war on the nations to bring them into subjection, those that remain after all the judgments of God. I tell you what, you'll be bowing knees quick then. Okay, so that's it. Let's have a look. There's a passage in Matthew chapter 5. It says this, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Jesus walking the planet, he says they shall, future tense, inherit the earth. Does that mean that we have dominion on the earth now? No, not, at least not when Jesus said it. We're foreigners and sojourners in a foreign land is where we're at the moment. So anyone who's an immigrant here, well, you guys can't say that anymore, you guys are Aussies now. You don't have standing, you go to the United States, you don't have a green card. You got no standing in there. You can complain all you like about Biden or Trump or whatever. You're not going to change nothing. You can't vote, you can't do anything. You're not a citizen. When you become a citizen, then you can change things. So our root, people are trying to change things down here. But we're citizens of heaven. We change things through our weapon, which is prayer. We change things in the heavens, and then things change on earth. So we're trying to do it the other way by changing things on earth without prayer, without praying if it's God's will, whatever. We're trying to do it in our flesh. God said, no, we're citizens of a different country. We need to see our King, and then our King will make what's in heaven come on earth. Okay, we don't go the other way around. Okay, just to bring it home, let's go 1 Corinthians here. I'll just read it so you don't have to turn because our last scripture is Daniel. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, because the one we just read on Daniel 7:22 said, judgment was given to the saints, and the saints possessed the kingdom. Okay. 1 Corinthians 6:2, so Jesus is dead by now. This is the apostles. Do you not know that the saints shall, future tense, judge the world? And if the world shall be judged by you, are you unworthy to judge the smallest matters? Know you not that we shall, future tense, judge angels? How much more the things that pertain to this life? At the moment, we're to judge what happens in here. You call yourself a Christian? Well, there's a standard you should be living to. You're not sleeping together before you're married. You're not shacking up with every Tom, Dick and Harry out there. You're being honest, living a life that gives glory to God, trying to obey His commandments. That's how you should be living. You don't live like that, judgment can come. We can say, hey, that's immoral. You don't call yourself a Christian. Just do what you got to do, but don't call yourself a Christian. We can judge these things here. But I can't go out there. Who am I going to say that to an unsaved person? They don't have any idea what I'm talking about. They're not living under any. They don't even know God's real. We don't judge anything there. We can judge in the house. He says, don't you know you judge rightly in your own house? And judgment starts at the house of God. Is that right? But it will come back to judge the earth eventually, is what's going to happen. Okay, things. Let's end on this scripture. Verse 27, then the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole of heaven shall be given to the people, the saints of the Most High. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. What a wonderful... I tell you what, it's astounding, because I don't know where you're at, but I look at me and I'm hopeless. I can barely control my own life. That's the truth. You push enough buttons, I'll crack. Easy. That's me. And I thinking, God, you're going to put me in judgment on somebody, or, I can't even keep it together myself. I'm struggling, you know what I mean? Like you're thinking, I can barely hold all these things together. I can't hold them together. I'm kidding myself saying that. I come every day and say, Lord, I've stuffed up again. Lord, I've stuffed up. And I'm not saying that to try and sound humble. I'm just being honest. I'm a filthy man. I have a filthy tongue, filthy mind, and God is trying to get me to be his servant and his son. And every day I struggle with the old man that gets out of bed with me. And when I'm on top and I'm thinking I'm great, then all you got to do is have one day this week where everything fell apart. Everything fell apart. Mate, the day you rang me with the kitchen thing. Mate, what wasn't going wrong that day? And I tell you what, you wouldn't have me up preaching here if you heard me in there. I was thinking, Lord, all hanging out. I said, I'm not worthy to be your servant, Lord. I'm not worthy to be your servant. Here we are, broken people. And Jesus says, you know what? By the time I'm finished with you, you're going to be judging the nations. How's that? What an honour. What an honour. What an honour. And not only that, once you're in that position, he said, you're going to be there forever and ever. It would have been enough to be his pedicurist, or what do you call it? Podiatrist? No, what do they call it? Do the toes. Whatever that thing is, you know? What is it? Is it podiatrist? Not the... Pedicure. Pedicure, that's what I'm thinking of, you know? Yeah, not the medical, but, you know, it would have been enough to get the toe jam out of Jesus' toes, wouldn't it? I'd been happy with that. He says, no, mate, you're not going to be satisfied. I'm going to sit you up here with me, and really you're going to reign alongside me. Wow. Wow. That's humbling. That's humbling. What an honour. What an honour. God is getting us ready. You wonder why it's tough down here? Because God is getting us ready for what we've got to do up there. This is just our journey in the wilderness, like Moses herding the goats. That's where we are, man. You know what I mean? You got a tough, stubborn goat that's leading you around the tracks and going around in circles chasing this thing. That's God cutting off the pieces, because it's you that's going to go through the glory veil, and you that's going to be sitting ruling and reigning alongside Jesus. What an honour. What a privilege. What a privilege. Alrighty, so I don't think that was too informative today, but there's things to have a look at. Even Daniel had no idea what he'd seen about the whole book. And you'd be false to think that I could tell you every mystery in there. It's beyond us. Things that will unravel. But there will be 10 kings, and there's going to be a play, and there'll be a war of the north and the south, which we'll probably go through at some point. But these things cannot be seen at the moment.